all. How are everyone doing? How are all of you doing? It is a new week. This is the week ending November 16th, and this is my 2 cents. So, this week, um, we know what the biggest story is, and I will be talking about it. That would be the Epstein files. But let's start with quote unquote the smaller potatoes of the week. Well, first we have the Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene breakup. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a representative congresswoman from Georgia, and she has been a staunch supporter of Trump almost since the beginning, before it was even popular to do so. Recently, she has come out very much in favor of pulling and releasing all of the Epstein files. She was part of the campaign strategy to they campaigned on releasing the Epstein files, and she agreed and wanted that to happen. She's also now been talking about healthcare and the concern that she has over it, and also that she doesn't believe that it's right for billionaires to be. I have a fly in the truck. It's driving me crazy. I'm sorry. So she has been adamant about she doesn't think that billionaires should be protected if when they're predators. And all of these are good things that I think a lot of us agree with. However, Trump has gone off the deep end about this and has gone on Truth Social and Twitter to call her a traitor. And she has responded with
support them in delivering the campaign promises we made to the American people. His remarks, of course, have been hurtful.
Now,
however,
there's a lot to say about that. As far as the two of them having a split, she recently was on The View. She has been doing the press junket of going and doing interviews on a lot of these shows. A lot of these shows that are more, and channels and platforms that are more centrist or moderate, and some that are even left-leaning, or at least perceived as left-leaning, such as The View. And, a lot of people are celebrating this. And as I have said before, I am all for people, coming to their senses, having a change of heart, learning that something is that they thought was right is wrong, or vice versa. All of that is great. I'm all for reflection and change and self-discovery. My problem is I don't believe her. This came out when it became clear that her family was going to be affected by the changes to health insurance. Not that she can't afford it. She's a millionaire. And the Epstein files, I'm not entirely sure whether that is a personal thing for her or something that she is simply concerned that she's going to be remembered as someone who protected pedophiles and doesn't want to be associated with that because she is a smart, ambitious woman. And that's not necessarily, a character flaw. I'm just saying that how you use that is relative to who you are as a person. And if you go back and look at Marjorie Taylor Greene's track record and the things that she has done and said over the years regarding lots of things from trans rights to Christian nationalism to racist comments that she's made about Jasmine Crockett and other members of Congress, to her attitudes toward gun regulation. She's not a good person, and this sudden change of heart doesn't make her the Grinch at the end of the movie. It just doesn't, in my opinion. I think it's also interesting that so many people have kind of had issues. People who were supporters of Trump have kind of waffled and flip flopped between the mass deportations and the Epstein files. It's really caused a big division in his base. Charlie Kirk, before his murder, was adamant about releasing the files as well. So much so that Trump had told him basically to stop talking about it, and Charlie had said no. And he wasn't the only one. People like Joe Rogan were questioning, what this meant. Watching the footage of ICE, he had some changes of heart. I believe Von D had the same kind of revelation or epiphany. So it's more than a little telling that the line in the sand for a lot of people are the Epstein files. So there's that. I had mentioned last week the growing tension with Venezuela. The U.S. military is now conducting military exercises off the Venezuelan coast. Trump keeps talking about going in to bomb or strike drug factories on Venezuelan soil, again, where we have absolutely no jurisdiction, nor do we have any proof. This is just speculation, and a lot of people on both sides are saying, both Republicans and Democrats who know the situation, are saying that it's likely that he is doing this because the U.S., or particularly the hawks, the ones that are focused on military might, want a regime change in Venezuela. They don't like Maduro, who is currently the president, their leader. And there is a woman who is poised to take over should something happen to Maduro, and who just won the Nobel Peace Prize for speaking out against Maduro. Because Maduro is not a great guy. I'm not saying that he is. He's definitely corrupt, but she is very receptive to America and specifically Trump. Now, whether she is just counting, I don't know much about her, whether she is just counting on, the America being the way that she gets a tyrant out of office and herself into office, a bad thing for a good reason. I don't know. I don't know enough about her, but I will look into it and try to find more about her as this story unfolds, because this tension with Venezuela is not going away. But let me remind you that Trump, not a shock to anyone, campaigned again. Another lie that was told, campaigned on the fact that he wasn't going to be a wartime president. He was going to make sure that wars ended. And technically, I suppose that's true if he's not declaring war and just attacking Venezuelan sovereignty. Sovereignty. I can talk, honest to God. So that's going to be an ongoing story, and it's going to have implications. It wouldn't be the first time that America's gone in and changed leaders because we wanted someone more pliant or more agreeable to U.S. concerns. But it's usually doesn't end well. It usually comes back to bite us in the ass and cause some kind of a problem or a war. I mean, we complain about Al Qaeda. We helped to create it. The whole issue between, the current issue, because it's thousands of years old, but the current issue between Palestinians and Israel, we kind of created that cluster as well. So there's something to be said for that. But it's something that we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on. Trump has announced that he is cutting tariffs on food to help reduce the high prices. Now, the reason, and that's a good thing, not going to say it's not. I can't even say even a broken clock is right twice a day, because this was not a mistake. Let me say it again. He is decided to cut tariffs on food to make groceries more affordable, right? Even though he said he didn't want to talk about affordability anymore. The issue here is that he keeps telling the American people that tariffs get paid by other countries, which is a lie. It's been bullshit from the minute he said it, and he knows it. But a lot of people didn't. And so the prices went up, even though he keeps swearing up and down that they are the lowest that they've ever been. They're not. And anyone who's out there shopping knows this. So he's cutting the tariffs. I don't understand. I thought the tariffs got paid by somebody else. Why are you cutting tariffs to bring prices down if tariffs don't affect American prices? The truth is in the details. He says one thing and then he acts a different way. Pay attention to the reality, not the BS. But I suppose, due to pressure, due to something, he's getting hit left, right, and center, and he needs a win, especially after last week, the absolute mollywhopping that took place for the Republicans by Democrats in the special elections that were happening. One moment. Geek is coming back into the truck, so there's going to be some noise. There he is. Okay. So I don't understand the reason. And there's another thing that he's done this on, where he says one thing and then he reacts as if what he just said was a complete fabrication, because of course it was. So then, of course, we get to his completely whacked out attempt to cripple and I guess not take over, but certainly leverage the BBC. Now, the BBC, I think, and Al Jazeera? Geek, is the media company I'm thinking of Al Jazeera?
The one that's like really unbiased.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Al Jazeera, which is based in the Middle East, and the BBC in the UK, and those are the two most prominent that pop to mind as being really good and unbiased news sources, because they're not government run. Do you know what I mean? And so a lot of Americans will look, they'll look at what our news is saying, and then they'll look outside and compare and contrast the two to see, you know, what we're being told versus what the world is seeing from an unbiased point of view. Now, Trump recently went over to the UK and was hosted by King Charles, and you know, they played nice. He kept him away from the press, gave him a little carriage ride like a little kid around the royal estate, and then you know, had the equivalent of like a state dinner, and he went home, right? And he seemed very satisfied, but he always seems very happy at the moment, and then, you know, says something else. So when he left, there was a big hullabaloo over the fact that the BBC ran a story about January 6th, the attempted insurrection, and there was footage of the speech that Trump gave that revved everyone up to go down to the Capitol. And there was some creative editing, I guess, that happened that, in Trump's opinion, was biased and unfair and put him in a bad light, made it look like he incited violence when he had specifically said to, you know, protest peacefully and to gather peacefully. If you watched that speech live, then there should be no question what happened and why the people had worked themselves up into such a lather before heading down to the Capitol, where Trump was supposed to go with them and never did. And there was editing, not gonna lie, but it didn't change the story, and it didn't change the reality of what happened that day. But he feels that it did, and so he's threatening to sue the BBC for $1 billion. That's B billion. Now, the kind of funding that the BBC gets versus, you know, Paramount or Disney or NBC or anything like that he sues for a couple of $1 billion or $10 billion, $15 billion, or millions or what have you, is different. Now, from what I'm seeing from reports coming out of the UK, that would be a big hit, and it would allow some very MAGA light or MAGA like factions of UK politics to take over the BBC, and they're poised to do that. And a lot of people are saying that they think that's all part of the plan. I'll leave that up to you, whether which side of things you believe, and I invite you to do your own research if you're curious. Check through Ground News, check through Snopes for fact checking, check through Al Jazeera before that's gone too, check through the UK, although stay away from the Daily Mail. That's kind of, it's a step above the Inquirer, maybe. So there's that. And then, of course, finally this week, I want to talk about the Epstein emails that everyone is losing their shit over. Now, I should specify that these emails are not anything that came from the FBI or the DOJ. This is not Department of Justice. This is not anything official like that. This is lawyers who got the idea from an interview to subpoena the personal emails of Jeffrey Epstein from his estate. So there are lawyers who are involved. You know, they don't really have skin in the game per se. It's not Epstein's family. It's not Epstein's friends. It's his lawyers that are in charge of dealing with his estate post death. So they got this idea because the FBI and the DOJ were not releasing the files that originally Pam Bondi said they had, and then they didn't have, and there is no client list, and maybe there isn't a client list per se, but there are certainly files, and they have not released them, to spite the fact that Trump again campaigned on the promise that he was absolutely, because he was certain that this was, or said that he was certain that this was, Democrats and all the Democratic pedophiles that associated with Epstein, and he was gonna go get them, and so on and so forth, right? So now that he's president, he not only isn't doing that, but he's actively getting in the way of people who want to release the files. Now let's put politics aside for a second. If I told you that I wanted something made public, and then I started trying to stop other people from making that public, what would you think? But aside from that, he, like I said, he's gotten in the way of it, saying that people should drop it. Why are people still talking about it? Why are people still interested? He's dead. He's been dead, X amount of years. Why are we still talking about this? Because he's being, described and labeled as one of the most prolific pedophiles in American history. I don't know if that's accurate, but he's certainly the most high profile. In any case, so they subpoenaed his personal emails, and the estate had no reason not to turn them over, so they turned them over. And they found some interesting stuff. Now, supposedly there are over 20,000 emails to various people about various things. The interesting part is that Epstein talks about Trump repeatedly to many different people, talking about how easy he is to manipulate, how much he, lies. And at one point, Epstein said, he's not really talking about Trump, that he's not close with anybody. He tells people what they want to hear at the time, and then he moves on to the next person and tells them what they want to hear. He talked about in an email with Ghislaine Maxwell, told her in no uncertain terms that of course Trump knew what was going on. That's why he was mad, he said. That was why he told her to stop, because she was quote unquote poaching or stealing girls, women from Trump's Mar-a-Lago and siphoning them over to Epstein. So the problem with that is that, and Ghislaine Maxwell responded in those emails saying that she had been thinking about that. And yet in her interview, she said that she had no memory of, Trump ever being at the house or interacting. And I should say that in that email, Epstein talks about Trump having spent time with a victim, the name is redacted, for many hours at the house. And again, to which Ghislaine Maxwell responded that she had been thinking about that. And yet she claimed to have no knowledge of anything like that. And that was part of her bullshit story that got her moved from the prison she was in to a Club Fed, where she gets to, basically vacation. So, and Epstein said other things about how disgusting and twisted Trump was, the specifics of which are vague. He does say at one point that he, in one of the emails, that he knows how dirty Donald is. Now, whether that's dirty corrupt or dirty like he knows what his kinks are. One of the biggest things that people are frothing at the mouth about. The left because they want to see him nailed to the wall, and the right because they can't believe they would say anything about, their Messiah, or like this about their Messiah. So basically, a question was raised about asking if Putin still had pictures of Trump performing oral sex on Bubba. They do not specify who Bubba is, although it is a well-known fact that Bubba is a nickname that was used for Bill Clinton. And of course, social media is abuzz with all of that, and everyone has jokes. And someone, I believe it was Epstein's brother, was asked, and he said emphatically that it was not Clinton, but he would not say who it was. Whether it was or whether it wasn't Clinton is kind of irrelevant. The idea that Vladimir Putin, the leader of Russia, who once upon a time was like one of our biggest concerns, if not outright enemies, has, according to these statements, pictures of the current president in a compromising position, regardless of who it is. And then, if that's true, that certainly explains the kind of footsie playing softball relationship that Trump seems to have with Putin. He always talks about how he's going to, hit Russia with sanctions, and he's going to lay down the law with Putin. But he talks a good game. But when he gets face to face with Putin, they usually have some private conversation, and then Trump smiles and goes home. So, that potentially casts things in a new light. There are a lot of conspiracies, obviously, about the names coming out. There's supposed to be a vote next week in Congress about releasing the actual Epstein files. But there are people talking about internal documents, and this is all speculation at this point, but internal documents, people are claiming that there are plans behind the scenes to suppress any Republican names on the list and only release Democratic names on the list. And or also release Republicans who are out of favor, who might be on the list. And this is supposed to be a big gotcha moment. And the right has been doing this a lot. Well, what if Clinton's on the list? What if Obama was on the list? What if, any of the left-sided or Democratic politicians or influencers or millionaires or whatever, or celebrities, or at the island or on the plane or involved with Epstein and his sex trafficking ring. It's not a gotcha moment. Almost unanimously, on social media, anecdotally in person, statistically, we don't care. If Clinton's on the list, nail him to the wall. If Obama's on the list, nail him to the wall. If Brad Pitt, freaking Keanu Reeves, I don't care who it is. Tom Hanks. If they're on the list and they have, had sex with children and committed vile acts with minors, nail them. I don't care whether they, I thought they were on my team or not. and you shouldn't either. It doesn't matter. I always thought, I thought this went without saying, that, you know, if you hurt kids, if you mess with kids, that's a line in the sand, and we don't tolerate it in this country. There have been, you know, conspiracies to cover shit up, like with the church. And I know a lot of Catholics and Christians who stood up and went, no, that's not okay. And yet, for some reason, the hardcore maggots won't give it up. So much so, and I hope this infuriates you as much as it did me, so much so that yesterday or the day before, Megyn Kelly, the MAGA Barbie of Fox News, went on television, looked directly into a camera, and said this.
Circumstances. As for Epstein, I've said this before, but just as a reminder, I do know somebody very, very close to this case who is in a position to know virtually everything. Not everything, but virtually everything. And this person has told me from the start, years and years ago, that Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like, he liked 15-year-old girls. And I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts. That he wasn't into, like, 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types that could pass for even younger than they were, but would look legal to a passerby. And that is what I believe, and that is what I rely on.
And then, if that doesn't just, like, I don't even know what to say to that. She wasn't 8, or they weren't 8 or 5, and so it's not that bad. Are you kidding me? Are you absolutely kidding me? This is crazy. They keep trying to, in many ways, I find it interesting. The GOP keeps trying to lower what we consider adults. I wonder why that is. And then they're angry and offended that they are being rebranded as the pedophile party, or at least the pedophile protecting party. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And yet, you know, Trump then crashed out on social media saying what he usually says. And his post looked like this. You can feel free to pause it and read through. But the gist of it is that he's calling it a hoax. He's been calling it a hoax, the Epstein hoax. And here we go again. If it was a hoax, why did you stop talking to Epstein? If it was a hoax, why did he go to jail? If it was a hoax, why was he charged previously before going to prison for it? If it's a hoax, why is Ghislaine Maxwell in jail and trying to make deals? If it was a hoax, why do you keep mentioning, you know, that it's the Democrats that are the predators? What predators? If there's no story, if there's no, you see what I'm saying? It can't be both. Is it a hoax, or did something happen? Did you know about it, or did you not know about it? And the story keeps changing. So I'll leave it to you to figure out, you know, what you think. But I gotta say, it doesn't look good. And I don't know what his involvement was. I can guess, just based on his track record, Epstein's track record, their interactions together, video and photographic evidence of their interactions, comments that Trump made prior to all of this, his being so adamant about releasing the Epstein files because he wanted to get to the bottom of this. The bottom of what? If it's a Democratic hoax, I don't understand. It can't be both things. And yet, in MAGA world, all things are possible as long as, our tangerine tyrant says so. Anyways, that's it for this week. I will see you next Sunday. We don't ever want to take more than 30 to 40 minutes out of the week to focus on this so that we can keep our sanity. And I will keep doom scrolling so you don't have to. Don't forget to check out links in the description to check out full access to things. And comment, like, subscribe. It really helps the algorithm. I appreciate all of you that give the likes. But really, interaction helps. Any little comment is really appreciated. All right, guys. I will see you next week. Stay safe. Stay sane. Bye.